So this second video is looking at features of Word that might help us with our report writing, particularly longer pieces of work, your final year dissertation projects, any group work that you have to write an extended piece or a portfolio for. So it's mainly focusing on the References tab. So in the References tab there's all sorts of different features. I'm working on Word 2007 here. Everything up to Word 2016 has very similar features. Word 2016 is slightly limited in some of its features compared to older versions. First thing you've got on here is table of contents. So if I go ahead and insert some text, I'll just put it on a new page. So I'm going to write some headings, introduction, make some points. It's quite a short document, this. So you don't have to do this at the start, you can do this after you've written your whole document. And then I can add that text into different levels of my contents. So I can say, I want these headings to be part of my contents page. In fact, if I just show you one of those at level 2, I'll show you the difference. So you can see it's made it a subheading, it's slightly smaller. When I go back to my top, I can then say, okay, insert my table of contents. It gives me an idea of how I'd like it laying out, so that's fine. And you can see my subheading's indented slightly. It's got the page numbers on it. And when I click on that, I can right click and I can update it, and it will update the entire table, so it can add headings as I work on the document. It can update page numbers. I can also, it's a live link, so I can push Control on the keyboard and click these, and they take me to my headings. So that's the first useful feature in Word. The next bit on the References tab is the Footnote tab. Now the footnote area, you're not going to use footnotes. It's not typically part of the IEEE referencing standard that you work to. Some referencing standards use footnotes excessively. Because IEEE don't, I'm not going to dwell on that too much. The next bit you're going to use quite heavily, I would imagine, is the references, the citations bit. So you'll set your citations to IEEE. I'm going to IEEE 2006, but I believe the later versions it's just called IEEE. And then when you're typing something, you can make a point. So you can say something interesting, and then you might want to reference where you got it from. So you can click Insert Citation. At the moment, this document has no citations, no sources linked to it. So you can add a new source. If you're not sure where you found that information, you can put a placeholder and go back and fill that in later. Or if you've used this source before in a previous document, you can click Manage Sources. And everything that you've used previously will appear in the left-hand side. So this is everything I've ever referenced whilst in this version of Word, or on this computer. So have I referenced anything by me before? Yes. Okay. Let's take that. We can copy it to our current document. And now I can say, okay, I said something interesting. I said it. I click Insert Citation, and it will insert that citation for me. And that again is a live number, which means if I then add something else, add a second reference later on, and something else interesting, that was still said by me. If it wasn't said by me, let's add another source quickly. If it was said by someone else, that changes to a 2. If I change my points around, because I actually think that flows better, when I go in here and I click Update Citations, it corrects so everything comes in numerical order again. When I get to the end of my document, I might have to put some references. It's recognised I want another heading. and I can go into bibliography and insert bibliography. Everything's there now. It's all formatted in the IEEE format that's correct, and it's all in the correct order. And if I right click on that, I can update it if I do any shuffling. If I update my citations up here, it'll update the order of the bibliography as well anyway. Other things we've got up here, we've got the final bit that will be useful on this section is the captions. So earlier in the graph plotting, we made this graph. I said there's no title on this graph. If I'm adding captions, I can add captions for tables, figures, or equations. Captions go after a figure, so a graph is a figure, but they go before tables. So underneath my graph, I'm going to insert a caption. It's for figure 1. It recognises the first one in the document. I can just click OK. Now what I can do is, if I'm typing my document, so I can say figure 1 shows, rather than typing figure 1, I can go into cross-reference. I can say I want to reference, in this case I want to reference a figure, and I don't want to put the entire caption. It's recognised what my caption for my figure is. I just want to pick the label, figure, and the number 1. There's no space in there. So now, again, I hover over that, that's live. I can push Control on the keyboard and click it, and it takes me to figure 1. But more importantly, again, if I reorder my document, it's going to reorder the figure numbers. So it's going to recognise and correct everything. So if I right click on that, I can update the field after I've reordered, and it will reshuffle the numbers. I can also go back to the top. Beneath my table of contents, I can insert a table of figures or a table of tables. So a table of figures, it will tell me I've got a figure with that title on page 3. The final useful thing you might want to do is you might want to use hyperlinks within your document. So, something interesting, I can insert a bookmark. I'll call that bookmark interesting. And then at the beginning, I might want to say, or it may perhaps in the conclusions, I might want to say, see earlier. We don't want that as part of our table, part of our table of contents, but we can then insert a hyperlink to a place in our document, and we can link to a bookmark. So I've now got a link to something interesting. What that then does is you can create executive summaries, and you can summarise all of your points. They don't have to be headings, but you can jump to different paragraphs in your text. So that concludes a few things that are useful referencing tools for Word, for creating reports and extended pieces of writing, and can be used in conjunction with your Excel and your graph plotting. And hopefully you can use it in your car accident data reporting for task 2.